Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome to a January wrap up. I don't think I've done a wrap up video for like 2 years, I want to say. I just stopped doing them because I didn't want to be controlled and limited by the end of the month really. And sometimes I read so many books in a month that it was just like these videos are going to go on forever. This month I have read 7 books, which before I sat down to film this video I didn't think I had. I thought I'd read about 5 books, so we're going to see how this is going to roll. 3 of these books are a reread and they're part of a trilogy. One is a poetry collection and I think the other 2 are audiobooks, and then there was 1 book that I read on the Kindle. So let's start off with an easy one. The first book is Loose Women by Sandra Cisneros, and this is actually a poetry collection. I thought I was really going to love this in the end, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I ended up giving it 2 stars, and I started this at the beginning of December, the end of December, and only finished it probably about 2 weeks ago. And for reference, it's Saturday the 29th of January today. And it just took me much longer than I thought I would because I just didn't want to keep picking it up. There are some poems in here that I always asterisk my poems, the ones that I really like. So there were some in here that I liked, but I'd probably say about 10 of them. It's split into 3 parts, I want to say. And sometimes I'm not really sure when poems are split into parts, like why it's necessary. But yeah, it's split into 3 parts called Little Clown, My Heart. The heart rounds up the usual suspects, and then Heart, My Lovely Hobo, or Hobo. I think it says Hobo. And these poems are quite sensual, quite erotic. They very much feature, I think, like New York City and then like Mexico, and in between sometimes she actually does use a bit of Mexican as well. And in the back of here it actually says, now she gives us a book of poems with the lilt of Nortenno music. I'm probably saying that wrong, Nortenno music, and the romantic abandon of a hot Saturday night, celebrating the catalysms of love and mapping the fault lines of Mexican-American psyche. Loose Women is by turn bawdy and introspective, flagrantly erotic and unabashedly funny. And yeah, that's what it is. I would definitely say it has a sense of eroticism in it, and it's very sensual. It's very much about the body, about lovers, drinking, late nights, that sort of vibe. When I was reading some of the poems, I was just like, I don't actually know what that means. Like, what have I read? What am I supposed to get from this? And I just, it's terrible to say, but I just wasn't really vibing with it. I think actually she's an excellent writer. As I was reading this, I could really recognise that she's an amazing poet. I just don't necessarily think that she's the poet for me. So that was short and sweet. A book that I listened to on audio, I actually listened to 2 books on audio. One again was another sort of re-listen, and that is The Body on the Beach by Simon Brett. I actually started listening to this, I think, again at the end of December when we were in London, and I just couldn't sleep during the nights, and I just wanted to listen to something that I had listened to before so that if I fell asleep it wouldn't be a big deal. And yeah, I just wanted a bit of comfort in the sort of rereading of something that I knew that I enjoyed. This was a book that I had previously given 3 stars, and on the re-listen I also gave it 3 stars. The Body on the Beach is the Jude and Carol series. Actually, it's the Feathering Mystery series, written by Simon Brett. I want to say there are like 22 books in the series now, and I have listened / read all of them. No, I've listened to all of them. And this is obviously the first book where we get introduced to the 2 characters, so Carol and Jude, and it actually opens up with our main character Carol finding a body on the beach. She reports this to the police. The police come to her house and treat her with, a little bit with kids' gloves, essentially, because there is no body on the beach and they just think she's this menopausal woman that's just, losing it a little bit. And we're just introduced to the 2 characters. So her neighbour Jude has just recently moved in. I think it's actually like on that day or several days before that she's moved in. So it's about how they're getting to know each other and just how much different they are personality wise. Carol is an ex home office worker. She was put on early retirement. She is a divorcee, and she has her little dog Gulliver, and she's very like standoffish, very British, I would say. Doesn't do certain things because, oh my god, you can't do that, or comment on certain things like that. Whereas Jude is just like not that. They're around similar age. I'm going to say around 50. I actually believe Jude is older than Carol. We later learn in the series, but yeah, they're around a similar age, and Jude is just a free spirit. She's a bit of a, I want to say, like bohemian vibes and stuff like that, and she's not retired, she's still working, and it's just very interesting, like the contrast of their characters. And Carol really tries to find out more about Jude's life, but again, she's very British and reserved and doesn't want to ask. She wants to be told, whereas Jude is very happy to like tell if she's asked, but because she knows Carol doesn't want to ask her, she just kind of plays around with her. So essentially, yes, they find this, Carol finds this body on the beach. later confesses it to Jude, and they decide they're going to embark on solving this crime and finding out where this body disappeared to. And other things happen along the way, like you find out more about what really happened, who the body on the beach was, and so many things happen before you actually find out who the body on the beach is. And the body on the beach, you know, it's kind of central to the story, but it's also not the main part of the story. There is definitely more to it than just this one body, and it involves a lot more people. And what's really nice about it is it's how you discover their village, and you sort of get introduced to all the different characters, because you find out about like the Feathering Yacht Club, the sort of 1 or 2 pubs in the area, the like one other major super retail park that they live there. You get to really see what it's like in this village, but also you're introduced to everybody else around it. And in regards to like mysteries and mystery solving, it's not one that I think you can solve on your own, definitely, because I think when you find out who the body on the beach is, it's kind of like, I don't know how anyone would have guessed that, and I don't think that's the point of it. It's just about going through and exploring the village with these 2 characters and also their interactions with each other. So as a mystery, in terms of this one, it actually worked really well. The different components of who saw what and who they get to talk to, I thought that was actually really nice, and it made like a lot of sense to me. But yeah, other than that, I don't have much more to say about it. They're a very like light-hearted series that you can just sort of listen to or read, and I have actually really enjoyed most of them. The majority of the books that I've listened to, I have given 3 stars. I think I've given one like 4 stars, and I've probably given some like 2 stars. So it's a very middle of the road sort of mystery, but it's very light-hearted, very easy. Of course, people are dying, but you don't really get a lot of the gruesome elements of murder or anything like that. It's just more, there is a dead body, what happened. The other book I listened to was Followers by Angelo. This was one of the books, it was on my, my Goodreads want to read, and one of the things I'm trying to do this year is like actually read the books on that list, because clearly at some point I thought they were very interesting. I listened to this on Scribd, and I also listened to The Body on the Beach on Scribd as well, and I always have in my description box down below a link to Scribd. You can get like 2 months free, like if you use that link. But I listened to this on Scribd, so thankfully it was on there, because also I ain't trying to use Audible, and you buy Audible credits. I pay for a monthly subscription for Scribd, so I'm using that. Any of the books that I can find that on there, that's also on my Goodreads list. I'm going to be listening to it on that. I think this is a book that I must have had someone talk about, because when I read the description I was a bit like, based on the description I'm not really sure I would have wanted to read that, so I think I had someone else talk about it and thought it was interesting. As an audiobook, it is about 13 hours long, which for me is super long. I don't listen to audiobooks that are that long just generally, so I was like, okay, this is super long, very interesting. It could be really great, because I find, I don't know, like, people don't really write long books unless they're good, but that's clearly a lie. For reference, I gave this 2 stars. So this follows two different timelines, and essentially it's a sci-fi novel. I only started like really realising that as I got like maybe 25% of the way through, but then it's also not. It's a sort of dystopian, but also not. It's very odd. It's like contemporary as well, just because of the different timelines. And so we start off, I think, following a character named Orla. And Orla wants to be a writer, but she's clearly working at like an online sort of gossip magazine where they post about celebs and stuff like that, and actually opens with one of the celebs that she's been posting about and stuff like that dying. So she's like on that. And simultaneously we're also following the timeline of someone called Marlowe. And Marlowe lives in this place called Constellation, which is essentially like a celebrity village that has been developed, and all the time they're on camera. So think this, but you know, like vloggers all the time vlogging themselves, but this is not them vlogging themselves. There's just a camera that's with them all the time. I don't mean physically, I just mean there are cameras there. I don't know how to explain it. There's no one like following them around in that sense. It's not like the Kardashians or anything like that. And it's just these people in this ordinary village, and I think they sort of get given storylines, but other than that they kind of follow their day to day. And I think the only time that they get off camera time is obviously when they're in the toilets and they have medical appointments, but between the hours of like 3 and 4 a.m. Very, very random, and a lot of their life is just dictated to them because they have writers who write the storylines for them, so that, you know, everyone else can tune into this and people can comment and stuff like that. So it starts off quite like that, explaining the world and explaining like what's happening here. And we flip between these timelines, so you can tell like where Marlowe is. It's quite far. I say far, it's about like 25 years, I'm going to say. Actually, it must be 30 years ahead of the other timeline. And it's also taking place in a completely, like, I think Orla is in New York and Marlowe is in, I want to say California or something like that. I tell about American states. follows these timelines, and Orla, you know, gets a new roommate, and it basically follows how Orla wants to be a writer. And her and Floss, basically, Floss is her roommate, get entangled in this sort of scheme to make Floss famous. One of the things that her roommate is wanting to do is really like make a living from her voice, her singing, but she can't do that, and she wants to be famous in any way, shape or form. So they hatch this plan to get Floss famous, and the book just takes you through that. They have like, she meets a guy, they have a reality show, and it ends up like, even though Orla's not meant to be part of the show, when they're filming in their flat, she is in the background and she's like rolling her eyes and all these sorts of things, and it just kind of then becomes part of the show and she becomes famous, and it just follows them doing that, and it's a bit like, oh okay. And then eventually the two timelines do merge. Marlowe finds out a very devastating secret about her family history. I wonder if you can guess from that what it might be, and goes, like, leaves Constellation, even though she's actually technically contractually bound to not, in discovery of like her actual family and what happened in her family history. So you've got these sort of two lines, one's explaining the past kind of and the lead up to it, I guess, and one's explaining like what's currently happening. And what's happening in society is actually very interesting, but I feel like this book kind of wants to be quite instant and focused on these characters. And yeah, the book, I feel like, didn't know what it wanted to be about. Other things that are happening in this world is there's something called the spill. It keeps being referenced all the time. You don't even get to find out what it really is until like 90% of the way through. Someone smarter probably could have figured it out, but I was a bit like, I had these hints and things about it, but I wasn't essentially sure what it was. And if you haven't read the book, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But yes, we have an event that has taken place in society, and it's actually very interesting. The idea behind it is super, super interesting, and I wish the author had just explored that a bit more, because what it is the knock-on effects of why sort of where Marlowe lives and this sort of celebrity city she lives in has been sort of created. And a lot of the parts that Marlowe is part of, is really interesting to see the sort of technology that is developed. There's a lot of use of robots that help people to do certain things, and it's quite interesting to hear it from that sort of perspective. And I think that's probably all I can say in terms of the plot, in terms of like not wanting to actually ruin it. The thing that I would say, the reason why this book is a 2-star for me is I don't think this book knew what it wanted to be about. I don't know if the book knew that it wanted to be about friendship, it wanted to be about the development of society, of the internet, the role the internet plays in things. I don't know if it wanted to be about motherhood. I don't know if it wanted to comment on celebrity culture. I just don't know what it was trying to do. It was doing a lot and not doing all of it very well. And this book is so long, and the book is so long because actually huge sections of it could have been taken out. I don't mind a long book, but your words have to mean something. This author is so dedicated to giving us a day by day of Orla's life, and I just think it's not necessary. There are some parts that are happening that you could easily just wrap up and just, you know, have it be done. You do not need to write day by day. And I mean this in the sense that, like, we have Orla's chapters, then we have Marlowe's chapters, and then we have Orla's chapters. Where we leave off Orla in the last chapter is exactly where we come back to her in the next chapter, and I'm like, no, passing of time, we get it. Like, make it a month later, a week later. It doesn't have to go back to the exact same scene. So it's very frustrating in that sense. It actually would have perhaps been a better book if more sections of it had been cut out, if it had been really edited really well. But I also think it's the fact that it's so long and doesn't actually have much direction. What it ends up being about, I don't really care. None of these characters are even really nice, apart from like Marlowe, she's okay, whatever. But it gets to the end and I'm just like, I don't care about any of these things. Like, I would have if you had spent time building us up to this, but realistically, I thought this was going to be a comment on like the internet, celebrity culture, privacy, data. It was none of those things. So, very disappointing. If you haven't read that book, I really would like to talk to you about it, because it had so much potential and it just never reached it. It really didn't. So the final book I'm going to speak to you about is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Y'all, I gave that book 1 star. It's just not the book for me. Like, I kind of knew going into it wasn't for me. It was one of the book club, it was the book club pick for the book club that I'm part of, and I was just like, I actually know I'm not going to like this book, but it was 99p, and you know, sometimes I have to try and participate. Sometimes you know you're not going to like a book and you're like, I'm not reading that, but you know, I was like, I like romance sometimes. I did not like this. I just thought this was really dumb. The first opening chapter, like the prologue, is just dumb. Like, I can't get it. It's about Olive. She works as a scientist, and one day she I don't know, she just kisses another scientist. He's an older scientist. She's like a grad student, and he's like an actual professor or whatever. I don't know much about what the terms are in America and in that setting. And she kisses him because she told her friend she was dating someone, so she saw her friend coming around the corner, so she just kissed the first person she saw. And there is a prologue in this, and I actually don't think this is a spoiler because you'd have to be an idiot to not figure this out. But in the prologue, there is a man that she talks to in the bathroom when she's sort of interviewing for this school. And I think she's put in expired contacts, so she can't really see properly. But you know, they have this conversation, which is just such an annoying conversation, because I'm like, I feel like this wouldn't really happen. There'd be more questions, and it would not, like, you would not just be awkwardly talking all the time. But you know, she sees this guy, and he sort of like gives her some sort of inspo chat, but not really, and it's the same guy. So essentially she starts fake dating this guy named Adam Carlson, who is, yes, he is a professor. I just had to double check on Goodreads because I was like, am I saying this wrong? He's known for being very harsh. He's always described as brooding. He's very big. He doesn't really seem to say much, because I feel like we do not know Adam at all. And yeah, somehow she manages to persuade him to fake date her. I'll read the last paragraph of this. It says here, suddenly their little experiment feels dangerously close to combustion, and Olive discovers that the only thing more complicated than a hypothesis on love is putting her own heart under the microscope. This makes me want to be sick, I'm not even joking. And I don't have, like, I'm not one of those people that like hates romance. Like, there are certain elements of romance I do like. You know, people enjoy what you want, but I just think some of it is just like this. It's so cringeworthy, I can't deal. So yeah, they decide to fake date, and it's like she spends her time pondering why on earth would he be fake dating her, and it's just like, for someone who's a scientist, you're really dumb. I get emotional intelligence, and you know, an intellect like that is very different, but I'm like, it can't be that dumb. Like, why would anyone agree to fake date you? I don't know, maybe because they actually like you. I'm just throwing that out there. You just follow these two as they go on little fake dates and have coffee dates and see each other once a week, and every now and then Olive talks about her experiment that she wants to do. Won't ruin that for you. You can find out that delightful story and why she's in academia and things like that. And then there's her friend Anne, I want to say, who's Vietnamese, and is very much into, I guess, the inclusion of people of colour, or women of colour rather, in STEM. And then there's her friend Malcolm, who comes in every now and then for, I don't know why, like, there has to be a sounding board, I guess, or someone else who knows that she's fake dating. And then of course there is a major sort of scene that happens. So they go to this conference, Olive is asked to sort of speak. It's all really nice, but a horrible incident happens there, which, you know, is actually quite horrible. And yeah, I don't know how else to explain the story. Like, there's not much to spoil, but at the same time I don't want to be telling intimate details of it. But of course, they fall in love. Like, it doesn't say on the back of the book, but I don't know how anyone reading romance, it wouldn't be a spoiler. But I end up actually realising, oh my god, we really do like each other. This fake dating is like so good for us. We can like date for real now. And towards the end of the book, and then there's like inclusion of Malcolm and someone else, and then it's all like big happy families. And I was just reading the book like, this is incredibly boring and nauseating, and why has this been written? So yeah, there's that. My huge criticism of the book is just generally it made me cringe inside my soul. But one of the things that I just don't really understand is, I would have preferred some chapters from Adam's perspective. And maybe this has been done on purpose, but Adam just seems like a really bland character. We don't know much about him because Olive doesn't know much about him, because, you know, she's fake dating him, and they don't actually, like, apart from their once a week meetings, they don't like text each other or anything that much. So they don't really know much of each other's lives outside of that. And Olive in the book, you know, says that, you know, she doesn't actually really have much of a life. So we don't really know Adam, we just know that he's mean. Everyone else thinks he's horrible and mean. And yeah, like I said, he's tall, he's brooding, he's mean. Did I mention he's mean? You know, all the students hate him. Yeah, that's what we know about Adam. I think he's tall and dark. There's that. He's got abs, actually, he's got abs. And, well, we find out about his sexual preferences as well, so that's great. So yeah, that's my criticism about the book. I think they should have included another chapter on Adam, but I don't know. Maybe it's not been included because, you know, this is a genre she wanted to write about women and from a woman's perspective. Fair play if she did. But yeah, I actually did look up the author like on Goodreads, and it seems like she writes, well, she has a lot of upcoming novels and a novella sort of all based around STEM and things like that. So I think The Love Hypothesis is going to be a part 2. I'm not going to lie, I will not be reading any of those books at all. This was completely not for me. Completely respect other people that enjoy it, but I was just like, this is not a book for me. And it's not like I don't enjoy romance. I read A Touch of Sage, I don't know who the author is, which was quite a nice romance. I listened to it last year. I really enjoyed that. It had nice bits of food elements, but it also had a romance element. It's just they kill you with the cringe, so there was that. So yeah, so that is it for my January wrap up. That was a long one. I will not be doing a January wrap up again, or a monthly wrap up again, because like I said, I just seem to read too much, and I really like talking about my books in detail. I'm just not one of those people that can talk about a book in 2 minutes and wrap it up. I'm like, how can you be so succinct? And it's just like, there's too much to talk about. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in another one. Bye.